And then the third one, and the craziest one, Yahoo wants to buy Chrome.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Front End Fire podcast. It is the weekly show that helps you stay up to date with the latest and the greatest in the front end world. I'm your host today, Paige Niedringhouse, and I am joined by my co-hosts TJ Van Tol.
Hey, everybody.
And Jack Harrington.
Hello. And we're all looking at you straight in the face on YouTube because we're all now using the Elgato prompter.
Yes.
Hello.
This episode is not sponsored by Elgato,
No.
but it probably should be.
There you go.
It's good. So I just installed mine, and for people that don't know, it's like a teleprompter, but it's a teleprompter that acts as an additional monitor, which is kind of cool. So when you set it
Very
up,
cool.
it sits over your camera, and they have different adapters for it. But so that you can look directly at the camera because the camera's not offset from wherever your screen is. You're quite literally looking at it. And then it also has actual teleprompter stuff built into it. So if you record videos or stuff, which Jack and I both do, it's useful for that. But I'm still experimenting with it and trying to figure out what it all can do and how it works.
And you don't need some nifty high-end camera. You can use an iPhone or...
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah,
It comes
that's
with
actually what I'm using is an old iPhone behind mine, and it's great. But you can use a webcam, you can use a DSLR if you have it, you can use whatever, really.
It comes with a dizzying set of adapters. You open the box and you feel like, oh my God, what have I got myself into?
I know. Yeah. It's very gear. It's very, very like physical, you know? Like, oh wow, this is going to be a lot. Yeah.
Yep.
But yes, it's good stuff. TJ, I'm sure you can report back, but like you said, Jack and I have had ours for a while now, and boy, it's so nice.
Yeah.
So nice to be able to look at you and talk to you and see you at the same time.
Right? Yeah, when it's a game changer when you're in meetings. You know, you put the Zoom call or whatever it is up there, and then you can actually like, wow, I'm looking
Make
at you.
eye contact.
Yeah, I can make eye contact. That's crazy.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that out of the way, let's talk about the news for this week.
Let's do it.
All right. Jack, do you want to kick us off with news?
Sure, I have signals from the alien world. Whoa. No, actually. So it's it's not really news, but it's been around for about 7 months in a library called Alien Signals. And it's from Johnson Chu, who works on the Vue language tooling system. Language tools are a way to kind of inject language information into your IDE. And they make a really cool one called Volar. So if you're into that sort of stuff, it's neat. Anyway, but I guess in order to help with that and to help with, I guess, Vue, he re-implemented a new Signals library. And Signals is a state management system. It's very popularized by Solid.js and Ryan Carniato, kind of like the canonical Signals thing, and then Svelte 5 has now added it, and I think, obviously Vue has now added it, so a lot of different systems are adopting Signals. The reason I bring it up now is that Ryan did a really good screencast, actually, comparing solid signals versus alien signals, because, dun, 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 turns out alien signals are actually about 2x faster than solid signals, and nobody thought they could do that. Everybody thought we'd kind of reached the theoretical maximum speed of signals, and it turns out that there's a little bit more to be gained there.
So what are alien signals? What makes them alien?
I don't know. Because, I mean, to be honest, it's a very conventional library. There are 3 things that come out of any signals library. There's the signal primitive itself, which is basically, hey, I've got some data. It could be a number, a primitive number, whatever, string, array, whatever, object, whatever you want. And that's basically, you can get the value of it and then set the value of it. There's also derived, so you can derive a signal from another signal. If you have like a list of numbers, you can have a derived thing, which is the total of all those. And then when the original signal changes, that would get computed automatically, which is really nice. And then there's also effect, which is, hey, when anything that I look at changes, then I want to get called and do some sort of outside effect. And if you think about it, like, these are the three state primitives that drive essentially the state system of React. If you're into that sort of thing, like use state, use memo would be derived, and then use effect to be effect. And so those are sort of core primitives, and it gives you that. And then there are wrappers for like all the top frameworks. There's React alien signals that gets you into React and all that.
Okay, that was going to be my next question is, like, do you have to use it on your own or with another framework? It sounds like you just kind of find your adapter and kind of plug it in.
Yeah, you just find your adapter. And the cool thing is that potentially you could reuse these signals with other frameworks as well. So if you had, I don't know why we do this, but you'd have React and something else on the same page. You could have them both talking to the same signals. Or you could do like for a micro front end kind of thing where, it just, the framework creates a signal and then, it doesn't, you tap into that or however you want to do it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
So the one thing I would say for React folks that are looking at this, so half the magic of signals in Solid is that Solid does these incredibly fine-grained atomic updates of components based on when the signal changes. So when, like, if you've got a text field that has like a signal attached to it, and when the signal changes, that text field changes, that kind of thing, then you're pretty much in Solid guaranteed that, like, that is the literal, like, the code that's going to run is going to tweak that text field right there, and that's it. But when it comes to React, you do have the re-render cycle. So if you have a big old component and it's got a signal in it, and that signal changes, well, that whole component needs to get rerun in order to figure out what the changes need to be made to the DOM. So it's not like magic. Like, it's not going to get some massive speed improvement out of React, but, potentially when you think about global state management systems, could be a cool way to go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, and that's what I was just kind of thinking about is that React, the only way that React works is by figuring out what the differences are between what's in the VDOM currently and what's now changed and it needs to re-render it. So that is cool that you can integrate signals into it if that's something that you want to do.
Yeah.
Very cool. TJ, what news do you have for us this week?
I have some React news, and there's an update on the React compiler. So if you're not familiar, React compiler is a build tool that the React team has been working on, and essentially it's a tool that automatically memoizes components in your application. So the idea here is React's probably one of the biggest performance problems people have with React is unnecessary re-renders, because something is not supposed to re-render and then it's constantly re-rendering. We talk about tools that people have made to detect these all the time. It's a very common performance problem. And the idea behind React compiler is, well, what if we could just detect components that need to have memos, use memo, automatic memoization built into it? And what if we just did it as part of the compile step, which I'm super interested in. I'm still, like, years in, I still get confused by, like, some of the really complex stuff. When you have a complicated React app, it's one thing to find re-renders in a really simple demo app, but when you get to a complex, really complicated app, these things are really hard to find and detect and work around. And so the news here is that the compiler has hit RC. It has a release candidate release. They say that the RC is intended to be stable and a near final version of the compiler, safe to try out in production. But then they also say you don't have to rush into it. It's okay to wait until there's a stable version. They do very much encourage you to try it out. And I'll say it's extremely easy to try out. If you look at the blog post that we link to in the show notes, it's just a quick thing that you install and run. It adds it as a Babel plugin. And so you can just kind of see what happens. And I ran it on some demo apps this morning, and it worked in both of them. I couldn't see, like, since they're small apps, it was really hard to see. It's not like I have performance tooling hooked up to these things and could immediately see the results of it. But if you have a bigger app, I mean, since it's hit RC stage, especially if you have a bigger, complicated React app, I'd say it's definitely time to just try this. You don't have to put it into production, but it's really easy to just run and just see what happens. And I'm pretty excited about this because I think it's going to address a lot of performance problems people have with React.
Yeah, and not having to think about should I use memo here or use callback because both of those give me some anxiety. It's like, oh, am I if I do this, am I going to suddenly miss out on updates or, just not have the right things being cached? Yeah. So usually I just go for use effect and just let it re-render as much as it needs to or thinks it needs to.
Yep.
Yeah, if you're not a fan of dealing with those dependency arrays or making sure that those dependency arrays are right and there's the rules around them and all that kind of fun stuff, then yeah, this is definitely it'll be a win and it'll change once it is actually fully released. It will really change how we write React because things that we used to like avoid like kind of like object.keys or whatever for grabbing that because that would create a new array every time. Well, it's going to go and actually figure out like, oh, I don't need to run that unless this thing changes. So, it basically does that memoization for you, which can solve a lot of these reference issues, which I think are a lot of what messes people up.
Yeah, and if you have the knowledge, if you know how to do this, it's not like that you wasted all of your time. There's still going to be, it's still very important to know how React's render process works.
Yeah.
And if the compiler is going to save some of these things for you automatically, that's great. But this compiler is also not going to be perfect. It can only optimize certain things. So knowing that process in React is still incredibly important. But we'll have a nice little boost to help us out once this is out and stable.
For sure. And the React team has been working on the compiler for years at this point. So it's great to hear that they're finally getting close to a stable release and just use it for everybody.
Yeah.
There's a couple, they included 2 blog posts to companies that have tried this out in bigger apps. And so it sounds like the people that have tried this have really good things to say about it and are actually getting performance gains. Obviously, the React team probably handpicked the ones that they included in their blog posts to be the positive experiences. But still, at least there's people using this and getting benefits out of it already.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's a good project.
All right. Very cool. So my update today is about Redwood SDK. We have details now.
Ooh.
So just 2 episodes ago, we talked about how Redwood SDK is the new brainchild from Redwood.js, which is a React framework that has entered, as they say, maintenance mode. So it's going to be maintained, but that's about it. So Redwood SDK is where they're putting all of their new focus and energy, and they had a very optimistic blog post about how they're bringing personal computing back to the masses, and now we actually have some details and an actual website, which is rwsdk.com. So you can go check it out.
Right,
you should check it out because the design of this is wild, and I
hold on.
I think I like it.
But it's very retro.
I like it. That's not particularly compelling. RDBS.
No, it's not. It's not slick the way that so many tech companies are today. It's very retro, but very intentional in that, and I like it too a lot.
Oh, wow. Okay. This is for all of you Severance fans out there. This is definitely deep Severance vibes.
They're leaning into that.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the details about it. So it is a React framework, but it is for Cloudflare now. So they want to make it super easy for you to have SSR, to have React server components, to have server functions, to have real-time features, and then just deploy it out with Cloudflare with no friction, no config files, no you really having to think about it as a developer. It's just kind of an automatic solution.
Cool.
So, part of what they talk about with their integration with Cloudflare is that it has built-in access to Cloudflare workers, it has access to the D1 database, it has access to R2 storage, it has queues, it has AI, it has full local emulation via Miniflare, which I've never heard of before, but apparently is a Cloudflare option.
Hot diggity.
Yeah, and they want to be the solution when you have a little microsite that you want to spin up just for yourself or you and a couple friends, or you have a side project that you just want to put out there and see what it does. That's what they want to be. and that kind of niche use case where you're not building the next enterprise style app, or you don't need a ton of configuration and the ability to scale. You just want a little toy app out there to show off or use, for your particular use case. And so that's what they're aiming for.
It's interesting though, because if they're aiming for that, that's not where the money is. And I mean, maybe they're just building. But whenever you're dealing with hosting stuff, though, if you have tie-ins, like if they're doing something and skimming off Cloudflare hosting, there's potentially money there. I don't know. When I see something like this, I always wonder about incentives and why people are creating these sort of things. I think it's a decent idea. I'd love to be able to have an option where I could deploy things and the hosting is taken care of and it's intelligent about where these certain things land. I don't know. It's just still strange to me, even with more details.
Yeah, it's like really bought into Cloudflare. Really bought into Cloudflare.
And I think that is part of their strategy. I think that they're aiming to get acquired by Cloudflare, if I had to guess.
I can't imagine. I mean, yeah. Wow.
It has happened before. Cloudflare bought PartyKit, which was another third-party software solution
that's
that
great
was
stuff.
for multiplayer or multi-people on the same thing.
Yeah.
So I think that them leaning into Cloudflare this hard is their, letter to you should probably buy us because we'll integrate all of our stuff with you.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. I'd love for somebody who had experience with RedwoodJS to really kind of contrast and compare this with what this is, because I mean, looking at it now, it's like this is very evocative of what RedwoodJS was trying to do. The GraphQL stuff's gone, but the database, storage, real time queuing, it's kind of like RedwoodJS was, hey, we're not just going to give you routing. We're going to give you the whole kit and caboodle, the whole thing. Yeah. And then that's cool. If you're into that and you like their architecture, that's actually a really great way to jumpstart an application. So I don't think it's a problem. I'm just kind of wondering, what's the, how, is this just rebranding, or is this I guess, I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, it might just be a fork of it that ditches the GraphQL and rebrands it to try to get back out there. Because Redwood, anybody I talked to that had used Redwood pretty much always had positive things to say about it, but it was also just a very minority player. So the people that liked it, but it didn't achieve, it wasn't mass used. And so maybe the rebrand is for that. Let's get the name back out there. Yeah, it's mostly the same thing, but we're pivoting it a little bit. We're making this crazy website, and let's buy into Cloudflare and see what happens.
Yeah, they have a link on their website called Personal Software, it just talks about how back in the day we were building things just because we enjoyed building things, and we shared them with our friends, and we burned CDs, and there were no Jira boards, there were no sprint planning meetings. It was just you hacking away for fun. And that's kind of the nostalgia that they're going for. So I don't know if they're going to find it. I don't know if those people aren't so beaten down by today's software and the way that everything is a subscription and a big tech company. I mean, those people are still probably out there. I hope that there are enough of them who want to do this with Redwood SDK.
Yeah, we'll see. It's an interesting idea. Time. Like I said, if you get nothing else out of this, look at their website. You find the show notes, find the link, click it. You won't be wasting your time.
Yes.
Okay, at the possibility of being a little bit, I don't know, un-PC or whatever. Y'all, both of you, are at a different age range than I am. I'm a wee bit older, right? Okay, and this sings to me. This is like the 80s all over again. This is hair bands, metal, and the whole thing. This is when they say this personal computing thing, starting to print Hello World. I mean, that's literally what I did on my neighbor's, TRS-80 Model 1. That's how I learned to code, right? Yeah. But I don't, was it the way that you guys learned to code? Is that experience that you had?
No. Everybody that I listen to who's a little bit older than me, or who had a more, I guess, traditional introduction to computers talks about that, and having a MySpace page and having just stuff, GeoCities and things. I never did any of that. I never
Yeah.
had any interest in that. I played computer games. I played some video games. I went to college and got a business degree. There was zero computer anything in my future besides just using a computer to do my
Yeah.
job.
Spreadsheets.
But yeah,
Yeah.
spreadsheets, emails, social media, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, no, I had none of that interest when I was a kid.
I
And
I
here I
learned
am.
from GeoCities and Angel Fire, and the first code I wrote was JavaScript to figure out how to autoplay music on
Oh yeah.
the websites I was building.
Yeah.
So I'm like mid '90s, building a crappy little website for video games I was playing, and I really wanted music to autoplay, and that started the itch of trying to learn to code things.
Yeah. I think it's just an odd thing to do, to like basically court essentially my generation, most of which are either retired or on the way to being retired. And so I don't know what you're doing, but okay, sure.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it'll have one of those resurgences like we're seeing with all kinds of retro stuff right now, where the Gen A's and beyond will be like, oh, this is retro and super cool, and I want to do that. But I don't know how because I can't code, so I'll use AI to help me do it.
Yeah, like people, the fads come and go, right? So this is like buying into that.
Yeah. What I'm really missing is a CRT. I'm going to go over to my local, whatever, some dumpster fireplace and figure out how to go and rewire this CRT so it's back together. Right?
There are some like
Okay.
in the video game community, there are people that try to like keep a CRT around because playing original games, just those games were designed for CRTs. So
Yeah.
you get more of an authentic experience if you play on it instead of putting Sonic the Hedgehog 1 up on your like 65-inch flat screen, OLED TV. It looks a little bit different than it did versus how you played it back in the day.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago, I mentioned Adrian's Digital Basement. This YouTube video series that I've been looking at and watching. He's hilarious, but that's one of the things that he does is recover CRTs. He's like, they're not making these anymore. I got to make sure that I, get every last one I can find and make sure that they still work and all this. I'm like, okay, I guess. Yeah, cool.
Yeah. So that's Redwood SDK.
Yeah.
We'll keep you posted if they get acquired by Cloudflare or if they take off.
Okay.
All right. Did we have any bonus news for this week?
I've got a kind of fun topic around Google. So I've got 3 headlines that are kind of amazing headlines, but I got to set them up for you a little bit so you have some background on why I'm talking about this. So Google has been in the news recently for antitrust cases. Actually, 2 of them. They previously lost an antitrust case around their search monopoly back in August. They're also in the news because there's currently an antitrust case around their advertising, like the marketplace around advertising, but that's a completely separate thing. But anyways, they lost a case back in August. The judge ruled that they had monopoly control over search, and they're currently going through what's called the remediation phase. So after you're found guilty of being a monopoly, then it's like, okay, well, what do we do about that? And then that's the remediation phase. And the government, the DOJ, has brought up a bunch of different potential remedies. And one of those remedies was forcing Google to sell off or divest from Chrome. That's why this has like a front end tie to this, is because Chrome is easily the most popular browser, most well used by almost all developers and such. Which brings us to our headlines. So 3 different headlines have come out this week. The first one is OpenAI tells judge it would buy Chrome from Google. The second one is Perplexity wants to buy Chrome if Google has to sell it. And then the third one, and the craziest one, Yahoo wants to buy Chrome. So apparently, if Chrome is forced to sell off or divest or whatever, there's going to be a line of people that want to acquire it. But I should say that this is still at this point unlikely to happen. Google's going to appeal this. If any of this does happen, it's going to be happening years from now, almost certainly. But I mean, it is at the point where this is at least plausible to actually happen at some point, which is why it's in the news. And I don't know. I just thought it was kind of interesting, and the potential consequences for the front end world are huge if this actually does happen. And I don't know.
I don't think Yahoo has the money to buy Chrome. I don't think they can afford it.
Yeah, I don't think Perplexity does either. So,
and I just worry about like giving it to an AI company.
No.
Yeah, I think OpenAI does have the money. Just
for sure they've got the money. Well, that's the weird thing because they're not actually don't have the money. They burn money. They're not profitable, but like they're well funded.
They have the VC money.
Yeah, but that might be part of their play, though, is that none of these AI companies have something beyond AI, and they're all not making money off of it. So they need to bring in something that is going to make money, although Chrome is free. So I don't know how that would work, actually.
Well, the reason that the government even brought this up as a potential remedy for antitrust is because if you think about it, the reason Google makes Chrome at the end of the day is the default search in Chrome is Google. And so if they get to if their browser market share is 60% or whatever it currently is, that means 60% of the world's population is using Google search by default, which ends up funneling money into them. And if somebody else controlled it, they might do a different search or make a deal with someone. It would open up the market. And so that's why this has come up, which is probably also why a bunch of people want to buy it as well. Because if you could make the default, you talk to OpenAI.
An OpenAI search, exactly.
Yeah, or Perplexity or Yahoo, of all things. That also makes this Chrome probably worth like just an absolutely enormous amount of money too. So.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Wow.
All
But
right.
I thought it was a fun headline.
It's a very fun headline. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And the people who are the most excited to buy it are also interesting. What a weird lineup of folks.
Rogues gallery. People you probably don't want in your data.
Yeah.
Fascinating. All right. Well, we'll keep up with that because, man, Google's got some problems with monopolies in a lot of countries, it seems.
Yeah. They're spending a lot of time in court.
All right. Well, let's go from what's not making us happy to what is making us happy this week.
Let's do it.
All right, TJ, what's making you happy?
So I got another headline for you. And this is actually from last year, but I just saw it this week, so it's making me happy this week. But the headline is Detroit grows in population for the first time in decades.
Woo!
Nice.
And so Detroit is very near and dear to me, quite literally. I grew up about 20 minutes outside of Detroit. My grandparents lived their literal entire lives in Detroit, so my mom grew up there. We'd visit there all the time. I've been to hundreds of events, sporting games there all the time. And so I've seen the downfall of Detroit firsthand and really experienced it. And the amount of times, basically every news story out of Detroit for my entire life has been negative.
Yeah.
And they finally seem to be doing some right things. So just so people are aware, Detroit's biggest problem is that their population was almost 2 million people at its height. And Detroit was, I think, the 5th biggest city in the U.S. And there are now 633,000 people in Detroit. And it turns out when 2/3 of your population leaves, you have some big problems. Just blight, city management, emergency services, all of those things get quite a bit harder. But they've been doing some really good things recently. So, and like I said, I'm in Detroit every few months, so I get to see some of this stuff. But they've done a lot of demolishing. So just when there's areas that aren't lived in anymore, just tearing those areas down. They've been doing a lot of planting trees. They put up solar panels in different areas. So they've come up with some creative ways to reuse the space. And for the first time in my lifetime, more people are moving to Detroit. And it's making me happy because I like that area. I grew up there, and just seeing it. Actually, some positive news out of Detroit is a really good thing.
That is very cool. And that's something that I have seen a little bit of myself because I'm originally from St. Louis, and it was the same kind of thing. Downtown St. Louis has been trying to revitalize itself and get people to come back into the city, because everybody moved out to the county when they could. And nobody, and so downtown is just, you go for sporting events and that's like it. Then you go back home out to your suburb outside the city. So that's really encouraging because St. Louis is still struggling with that. So if Detroit is doing better, maybe they can take a page out of their playbook and do something similar.
Bring it to the arch.
Back. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's not like all is still well in Detroit. There's still plenty of problems, but just seeing some positive news is a good sign.
A long time ago, I remember like this company Shinola came out. You ever heard of Shinola? It's a Detroit-based watch company. And I remember it being a big deal because it was actually coming, like it was a new business coming out of Detroit that was manufacturing these high-end watches. So that was pretty cool back in the day. And apparently they're still around. I'm looking at it right now. It's actually, I remember when they first came out, it was like the nifty novel thing to have. If I didn't have an Apple Watch, I'd be going for a Shinola, I guess.
Right.
I've got a wild stat for you because I wrote this in my notes too. From the craziest Detroit thing that I've got, and this is more depressing, less making me happy, but there was a 6-year period in Detroit from 2007 to 2013 where Detroit had 0 chain grocery stores.
Oh, wow.
If you think about that for a few minutes, considering that at the time there was like 700,000 some people, and there was no Kroger, there was no Walmart, there was no Whole Foods, there's no anything. It just boggles the mind at how that could even be possible at all. And now there are a few. So it is. There's the Whole Foods right downtown. There's a Meijer. There's some other chains. There's some Starbucks, also a good sign.
Oh yeah,
Starbucks is a good sign. That's depressing that there was a time when they didn't have any, but also encouraging that they are getting there now.
Yep.
Nice. All right, Jack, what is making you happy this week?
Well, first off, the fact that we had no AI stories in our lineup this week, right? How cool is yes! We're becoming like the AI podcast there for a little bit. Like every single story is AI.
I know.
Yeah, nice to get back to the web, to our roots. What's making me happy is grilling. Finally got the grill started up again. Grill's going good. Did a couple of grillings. Did a pizza last night. Just it's the springtime. Sun's out. It's beautiful out here. The leaves are back. It's just, it's so nice. So nice.
Yeah, it finally got warm here too. I've not busted out the grill yet, but we've had our first week of like consistently warm weather, and it's pretty nice.
Right? Yeah, just so good.
Such a change.
Yeah, happy for it.
Nice. All right. My pick for this week of what's making me happy is the Severance TV series. Season 2 came out not too long ago, so we rewatched season 1 and then binged through season 2. And boy, I mean, that is a show that keeps you glued to it for every second. You're wondering what's going to happen next.
Yeah, we watched season 2, and I kind of found it like after a while it was a little frustrating because it was giving me so many questions, but not a very few, if any, answers. And after a while, I'm just kind of like, your brain just gets packed with all these questions. Like, wait, what was this whole goat herding thing about? I don't know. What was that about? What pouches? What are you talking about? Like, and did we get an answer? The funny thing was, after we watched the last show, we actually watched a YouTube video. It was kind of like a lot of the things that you didn't notice, or an interpretation of it, and that was so much more helpful because they were like, "Oh wow, oh okay, this is that." And yeah, so that was I would recommend for that, like watch some YouTube shows.
Is the show like done after season 2, or is it still like we still have a lot? Okay,
there's a big cliffhanger of season 3. I don't know how they're going to go. I don't know how season 3 is going to go. But by the end of season 2, it just sets it up for picking up right where it left off for season 3. Yeah, there's no closure. There's just more, like Jack said, there's more questions probably at this point than answers.
I'll probably hold off then because the way I watch so little TV that if I were to watch these and then season 3 came out, by the time it came out, I'd be like, I don't remember anything that happened. And I'd probably have to watch those YouTube. That's what I usually do. I'll go to YouTube and say, like, summarize the first couple seasons here for me, because I remember like little bits and pieces, but I don't know.
Yeah. This is not one of those shows where it's like so easy to, like Black Sails. Like, it's like, oh, okay, they're pirates. They're off doing pirating stuff.
Right.
This is where they left off with their piracy, this little mini cliffhanger kind of thing. And you kind of, like, you can get like a 5-second thing. Oh, yeah, I remember that guy. That guy got killed, whatever. And then back into it. But like, like season 1 of Severance was so freaking weird. You're like, I don't know. Like, okay. I have no idea what happened. Like, there was a bunch of people in a room. Is how I remember,
Yeah. I mean, there were some gasp out loud moments of like when you realized who people were or learned what their backstory was. But it does require you to focus. You can't be like playing with your iPad or your phone at the same time and expect to get the majority of what's going on.
Until you kind of give up on it, and then it's iPad City, because you're like, okay, I don't know.
And
that was kind of me halfway through. I was like, okay, this is, whatever.
Oh, nice. Well, I think that is going to wrap up our episode for today. So thank you, as always, to our sponsor, the Blue Collar Coding channel on YouTube. If you want to come and hang out with us, we're on YouTube and all the socials. We have a Discord channel, and you can always find us, you can send us an email if you want to.
Yeah. Woohoo. Good old email.
The old school, like that.
Yeah, right? Like Redwood.
Yeah. Bust out your old IBM PC and fire it up.
Get out those 5 1/4 floppies and start throwing them in. Oh, my God.
So thank you all for listening. We will see you again on the next episode.
Bye, everybody.